change of heart, wanna make a brand new start. You've been living on the edge with forever as a pledge. No more giving it up, turning me loose, setting us free. Baby, keeping it real, cause we got what takes for sure. There's no turning back anymore. Can you see it's all a game? Life goes on all the same. If at first you don't succeed, all you've got is all you need. If you believe, then stake your claim.
Hey, Rise and Thrivers. What is going on? Guess what? It's 8:01 p.m. Here we are on the third Monday already of March. It is Monday night, March 16th. And yes, you have joined Rise and Thrive together. And you are not, seeing just Raquel and I. We are not having a guest tonight. We are having our co-host this evening. So before we jump right into our amazing conversations that we have, just to remind you, we are Rise and Thrive together. We are a vibrant community to educate, empower, and equip you to get the results that you want through real talk and taking real actions. And we are in episode 151. Incredible on this Monday evening. Both Raquel and Hal are greatest hosts in the world. We have made a triangle today. And here we are. So welcome, sis. Welcome, Hal. Happy
We're
Monday.
having a triangle relationship.
Don't start rumors. That's how they begin.
I'm wearing green for St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
A day early, absolutely. Awesome.
Day early. But I'm a week late.
I was like, isn't it tomorrow?
It is tomorrow, yes. But I'm a week late because last week was episode 150. I keep missing the mark here.
You just let go of the numbers and be in the flow. It's so funny.
I'll just be in the moment.
Be in the moment. It's so funny because I have my little St. Patrick's Day thing that I was going to put on my head. And I was just like, So thanks for being here. We got, amazing conversation. I'm just going to start off with the incredible graphic. If you're just jumping in today for the first time, you're never late because it's exactly what you need at the right time in the conversation. March's topic is becoming requires boundaries, and not everyone deserves access to your growth. And I just realized how, that was Raquel's beautiful, graphics and really taking our conversation into creating a topic, and it's becoming. And I just thought of right now, it just dawned on me. I'm like, that is
His book.
his book.
Yeah.
One of the titles.
That wasn't by accident.
That wasn't by accident? You did that on purpose?
I did. No, really.
Yeah, she won't. Yeah, listen, that's one thing. She knows what she'll tell you when she's kidding, but there you go. And just to let everybody know, this wasn't planned that Hal was supposed to be here, right? At the end of the day, Raquel wasn't going to be here, and then Raquel is here. And I just chose to ask Hal to jump on as a co-host because I don't feel like talking for 30 minutes to myself. But yeah, so I love that, sis. So yeah, I love that you thought of that, thought it. So Genevieve's on and saying hi, and Susan's saying hi already to everybody.
Not only is it the title of my book, but the album that is inspired by the book called The Becoming dropped yesterday as well. Really exciting stuff.
All right.
Nice. I love the shameless plug. Let's go.
Yeah, you like that? Throw it in the
album?
plugs. Throw it in the plugs.
Where can we find it?
Let's do it.
Everywhere. Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your music, it's all over the place. It's on 15 different download sites. So it's just designed, to inspire and lift people up. That's the goal.
I would say it falls perfectly into the educate, empower, and equip people. Because I yesterday chose to clean out the spring cleaning of the drawers and really organize and get rid of things and put things away. And I knew it dropped yesterday. And so I put it on. So it was easy for me because I have Pandora and Spotify. So I just knew, boom. And all of those songs were there, all written by this incredible man and mastered and produced through him and our other great, amazing friend, Joey Lewis.
Wow.
Yes, Joey's a pure genius. Let me tell you, that this album would not exist without Joey. That is for sure.
Mm. That's
So
awesome.
I love it. We are going to
Yeah.
get into this whole, now, and we can use yours and anything else, but, absolutely the incorrect piece, but it's episode 150. And the date is incorrect as well because whatever I did changed. But yeah, we're going to continue on this like painting piece with boundaries, right? And one of those things that we have been talking about is that it's beyond the painting, it's beyond, we are the artist and the brush. And one of the things that came out of a lot of the conversation last week is that no is an important boundary. And yes, is an important boundary. And I'm in the boundaries of really looking at powerfully no's. And that provides peace for me. Like it provides a lot of peace. Having you as a co-host is perfect because Raquel and I spoke about it last night and I was going on and I'm just not at my tip top self. And I was like, okay, no, like the own piece for me to have a conversation would be to have that with someone rather than just myself.
Mm.
And so that was like my own no to, me doing it myself without speaking to anyone, because that gives me peace. And I really enjoy having it. And I love all the guests, right? Love all the guests, but I love having conversations with the three of you. And Ellen is saying hello too. So
Hey, Ellen.
share that little bit of that boundary for myself and that no, which is really not always easy. Like it's just something that's not always easy for me. And I'm glad I did because this is fun to have the three of you together.
Boundaries is an interesting word to me because, I think often with the English language, we associate words and we simplify it. So like when we hear boundaries, I think a lot of people hear like yes and no, or I got to say no to this, or I have to say yes to this. And what do I say yes to and what do I say no to? I've done a lot of work on boundaries because boundaries was in my self-growth. It was one of those things that I really had struggle like comprehending what it really meant. And I actually associate the word boundaries with two other words, and it's sovereignty and integrity. So when I think about sovereignty, I think it's about this idea of respecting somebody's space, their vision, their world, their energy around them. And it starts with respecting your own sovereignty, right? Knowing that, I don't want something from you. You're your own person, and I'm my own person. And when we respect that space, that's that boundary, right? So it's this idea of this mutual respect and there's integrity attached to that, right? Because you're being true to who you are, right? And allowing the other soul that you're interacting with, even if you don't agree with them, or even if they want something for you or you want something from them, allowing them to be true to who they are. So when I hear boundary, I kind of feel like these different branches. Does that make sense? Like kind of tying into that word.
Yeah, they're yours, right? Like, I mean, that's the beauty of it. You just said it. At the end of the day, does it make sense? It makes sense for you because those are your values. Those are your beliefs. Those are the things that when you hear boundaries, sovereignty and integrity are that. And you just shared that with us and our guests. So that one of the conversations we had last week was, how do people know your boundaries, right? We have to know them ourselves, really have a clear grasp of what they are so that when we're communicating and whoever we're having an interaction with, if we're not clear about them, I think sis, we talked about that a lot last week and Susan brought up a lot of stuff about that. If we're not clear about it, then your boundaries get messy and people step over things. And then, and then I'm mad at something, but I'm not even clear what my own boundary is. So you made it very clear for you, and so that people who interact with you are like, huh, sovereignty means this to Hal, you know, integrity means this to Hal, and then you can deepen those conversations when you feel you're having those interactions, and you can create boundaries with people. So yeah, I mean, that's what I heard from you.
How do you tell someone what your boundaries are? Do you like say, "Hi, I'm Raquel. My boundaries are don't lie. I don't waste my time." How do you get that out to someone what your boundaries are?
Is that a boundary? Don't lie, or is that like these are my non-negotiables? Is there a difference between non-negotiables and boundaries? Right? Like my non-negotiable is don't judge me unfairly, like or my non-negotiable might be I want you to be truthful and honest and communicative, right? But I still want to respect your thoughts. Like your thoughts is the boundary. I think boundary is a tricky word for me. I don't know if I'm really messing up your show right now, because I feel like boundary is this, like, I'm taking your whole conversation from the last couple of weeks and going off in a whole other direction. But boundary is like an energy to me. It's like when I first was on the first show with you, and we talked about love being this energy. Like I feel like boundary is that energy. It's just like knowing that you boundary is respect. I think to me it's almost it's an exchangeable word with respect. Like I respect you. I might not agree with you as an example, but I respect you and who you are and your thoughts and your ideas and your feelings, and there's that mutual relationship, and some things we're going to agree and jam on and some things we're not, but I respect that. That's the boundary. When I break that boundary, it's saying, oh, you're wrong, you need to think like me, or I want you to show up this way for me, or that's I think breaking a boundary. So I don't think I come into a relationship and say, hey, my name is Hal, you need to accept me as I am, or we're not going to have this conversation. I just think it's something that it's how you show up. Like it's how you respect. Respect breeds respect. So like respecting boundaries breeds respecting boundaries. Does that make?
It makes sense. And for me, when I hear you explain it that way, I'm like, I still need to let people know, because some people may not understand what a boundary is or respect is. They're thinking and anticipating that everyone thinks like them. So now that's a teachable moment.
Sure.
And how do we get that across? It doesn't matter to me what word you use, whether it's boundary, respect, none of it doesn't matter. But how do you get that across to someone else?
So I'm going to start jumping in here because a bunch of people are answering some questions for us. So Ellen's going to start off with, she's sharing that she thinks boundaries are self-enforced. And I'm going to say, Ellen, that's awesome. And we'd like to know, how do you go and self-enforce those boundaries, right? Because that's a great statement, and love to know more about that. And Susan had written in that, the conversation has me realize that boundaries can change as we grow and develop and know more, and choose powerfully and learn to communicate straightforwardly about them. And a no can be not at this time, right? And she's also sharing that she thinks that there's a difference between values and boundaries. And, and Ellen is sharing that we don't need to get that across, so there's a lot of things that are happening. And whatever's happening in the background over there. So,
things are falling all over the place.
Susan is saying, by speaking rather than reacting, by examples, is if somebody needs it. And boundaries, and Ellen saying boundaries are internal. So there's lots of things that we're kind of saying boundaries are internal. We need to speak them. And the question we're going to say to the group, and then we'll have our conversation as well, is, so how do you go about to do that, right? So how do you go about to do that? And I wish that, life can be as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like I don't think I've ever had a conversation to say, hi, my name is Gina. And before we have this conversation and before we have X, Y, and Z, here are some of my, you know,
You guys do understand that was just an
no,
example. It's not like you walk up to people
Right.
because everyone's using it. And I'm like, but that was an example. That's not how I meet people.
Right.
That would be kind of weird.
Or not. I mean,
No, that would be weird.
Well,
Someone
I
walked up to
think-
me and said, hi, my name is Mickey Mouse and my boundaries. I was like, Mickey, walk yourself right back over where you came from.
so Raquel, that's weird.
I think to tag on to what Raquel was asking though, and I don't know if you meant this, Raquel, is the question, how do we get across or when do we get it across? Because I think there might
Those would be two different questions, but it could be a how and when, or when do we get it? And when we get that opportunity, how do we get that across? Because at some point, and this is just me feeling the way I feel like people, if I don't tell people, and it doesn't have to be directly that way, but they'll notice that, hey, Raquel is the type of person that she'll tell you the truth. She's not going to lie to you. If there's, if they catch on. Then and there's some people who want to test those waters and tell me a lie. And I'm like, well, didn't you say the opposite? So now I'm confused. When I tell you, and this is right out, when I say I'm confused, I'm really not. I just want to use the word I'm confused because you're kind of making me look at you side eye.
Yeah.
And I'm not explaining side eye.
Well, I think we're saying the same thing, right? Because I think that I would react the same way, right? Depending on, because that's your boundary being broken and now you're addressing it. So that's also like the when, right? When I feel somebody not being in integrity, or stepping over that line, that's when I will address it. Prior, I'll just accept somebody and talk and share. I won't be that Mickey Mouse person going up and saying, hey, this is the boundary, like don't cross it, right? There's a mutual respect there. And then when the experience happens, then I'm like, oh, wait, time out. Like, can we have a conversation about this? Because I feel violated or I feel a certain way. And I feel like you crossed the boundary there, right? And that can come in many, many different forms, right? And I wonder if it's different, like Raquel, like what I think is breaking a boundary is obviously not the same thing that you think is breaking a boundary. For everybody, it's probably very different things.
And Ellen's writing, it depends on how important the person is to you. Genevieve was sharing authentically that boundaries sometimes get complicated for her. So we really picked this topic because
it's a tough topic.
I personally have never really I loved it. I loved when she created it, and they're personal and professional are two different scenarios, Ellen's saying. And I love that, Ellen, and I'm going to disagree with you on that one for myself. Because really what I'm learning from this conversation each week has been that it really starts with me, right? I got to know those boundaries. And the only way I've learned about boundaries, and I'm continuing to learn about my boundaries, is going out there and being in life and speaking to people and getting into different spaces. Yes, Ellen, I get it from a job, because sometimes a job, and I'll use mine as a social worker. When a social worker, we kind of know what some rules and regulations are. There are things that we learned how in social work school. I tested those boundaries all the time about, we're not supposed to share our personal, life with our clients, right? That is like the number one, like, don't cross that boundary. I had tested those waters. And before I tested those waters, I was very clear in making sure I had deep conversations with my professors and where did that all come from, and giving scenarios, right? Like, so all of that, because if you're working with someone week after week and your family picture happens to be up there and they're asking you week after week after week after week about this person, but I can't, hey, by the way, just want to let you know the boundary is you can't ask me about that. We're not going to have a relationship. I've had that, and I've argued in big professional settings. So my point is knowing your own boundaries, right? And Lori's sitting in here saying that boundaries should be spoken about. Otherwise, how will someone know when they've crossed that line, right? I don't personally advertise my boundaries, but I slightly will brush over a certain topic to see how that person may respond and react. And from that reaction, I feel like I would know if or when they may or may not cross the line. So she's like in conversation, right? Like, and she'll bring up something that shares about, her values, something about that's important to her. And then depending on how that person reacts to it, it might be like, oh, I can see that person might cross that line, cross that boundary. So I might have to communicate more about that, right? Susan's saying that from this conversation, I think boundary is literally feeling an invisible boundary, like a country's boundaries are pierced.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly how I was thinking about it, Susan, for sure. Like when you talk, because I use the word sovereignty. Sovereignty is usually used when you talk about cultures and countries, right? And countries have boundaries. They have borders, right? And if you cross into that country, you respect their sovereignty. You're supposed to respect the culture, the values, the ideas of that country, even if something inside of you doesn't agree with it. You respect that, but it's also mutual, right? It goes both ways. At least that's how I take it. I struggle with the I think the social workers out there might hang me for saying this, but I struggle because I'm a systems person, right? And the textbook tells you have to do things a certain way, and there's boundaries you don't cross, right? But there are stories in my life that I choose to use as a social worker for teachable moments that the textbook might say, oh my God, Hal, you can't tell them that story. That's from your personal life. But my personal life has inspired and changed many lives. If I listened to the social work textbook, none of my books would have came out, right? Because, they're all these deep stories that I use to inspire people, right? So I that society boundary rule I struggle with, but there are people in social work school that would be like, no, you have to follow the textbook. You stay in the box. I'm not an in the box type of person.
And then you find out for yourself, is that the place for you or not? I've been in many of those scenarios, and you've heard those stories from me that I've quit. Like literally quit because a state boundary, that's like, well, this is how it's supposed to be done, and this is how it is. And I did it, and it made me sick to my stomach. And I will never go through that again. And if that's the way that's going to be done, then I know what I'm standing and fighting for, right? And I quit. And then there's the backlash of, whatever that looks like, and whatever people, I don't care, because but it's always like Susan was saying, a growing learning process for that particular organization and that particular way of handling that. That's not for me. And I don't believe in like cookie cutter, black, white.
Right.
Everything just keeps on growing and learning. So that learning process, the next time I had another scenario that I had to call the state to share about something, I was able to use that last past experience from that. I felt a boundary that didn't, was crossed and didn't agree with, and had a whole different conversation with a whole different person who's in the same exact thing, and things shifted differently.
Sure.
So when we say like how do boundaries, it's living them and knowing them, and in conversations with people and daily life. And
now I have a question, Reg. Is it because going back to that state boundary and how you felt about it, is it because that state boundary violated something that you believed as a person?
Oh,
why did it put you in such a frame of mind?
Because not even like, I didn't even believe, like, I just couldn't believe, like, to know that harm was going to happen to someone, and I couldn't do nothing about that because I was told to wait and allow that harm to happen. That's mind blowing to me. Like, I don't care how you want to shape it or do it. Like, I was like, no, can we just get help there? Like help there at this moment. So yeah, I guess it's my thing. Like, sorry, I don't understand this. And we're on the phone and crisis is happening right here. And you're telling me that I've got to sit and wait while screaming, yelling, crying, calling my name kind of thing. I mean, this is like a major thing, like a major. And I was like, that just makes no sense to me. So in my belief system, when it is my job and told, like, when someone's in danger, in harm, and it's happening, call this number so we can get the people over there to handle what they need to do. And they're telling you, hold on, please.
This is why I love this conversation about boundaries, because I think we're mixing up a couple of things. I think this goes back to what Susan was saying, right? There's a difference between boundaries, and values, and there's a difference between boundaries and laws and regulations in the system.
Right.
What Susan's saying here, this is important.
Oh, as a social worker too, when we are not psychoanalysts and we use our stories to inspire, but you must know when you're crossing the boundary between listening to the other as a separate person and you're melting into their story. Yeah,
that's powerful. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
yes, but I also think laws and all these things that you're talking about come from a multitude of conversations we're talking about right now.
So let's pick one conversation out of the hat. And the one I want to pick out is relationships that we have, whether that's friendships, partnership, business partners, intimate relationships. When you get into one of those situations, and I call them a situation.
Situationship.
That could be, no, that's something totally different. Situationship means somebody about to get hurt physically. But at what point do we share our values? Because honestly, I've never had anyone ask me, what are my values?
Wow.
Or what do I value?
I talk about this in my leadership class all the time. I love that you're bringing this up. I always joke with my students, I spend so much time on building values because we don't talk about that as a society. We know when we push, we know that we're shaped by things we see on social media. We know we're shaped by our family, we're shaped by our culture, we're shaped by our friends, and that we have these core beliefs, right? And everybody has different core beliefs based on what surrounds them. But we don't go around as a society and go, hey, by the way, nice to meet you, Regina. My name's Hal. Let me tell you my values, right? But why don't we? Right? When you're getting into a relationship or a connection or a friendship, why isn't it the norm to say, hey, this is what's really important to me? Family is really important. Being honest is important. Not cheating on me is important.
That should be number one.
That should be number one, yes. But yada, 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 right? And then you find out 8 months later, it's like, oh, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that bothered you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And that's super great because Genevieve's like blown away right now. She's in the like, holy cow, guys. What a great question. She's like,
sure.
What do I value? Again, how many of us have really taken the time to say, what do I value? And we've had lots of conversations from the young people to just friendships and where we are now at this time. Even Raquel and I talking Sunday night, having our little, behind the dark, rise and thrive together conversations of like really looking at values, like really, even though we didn't sit there and say, hey, let's talk about values inside of our conversation in relationship, people, friends, what we're looking for, whatever. It is something I know, particularly in this particular relationship, and how you can speak on behalf of, even when our relationship was in like the relationship piece of it, we did have conversations about what matters to us. We did have conversations about things that were values that made that relationship then move forward. Mm-hmm. But I would say that grew out of not having those conversations prior to other relationships. I don't remember that with my high school sweetheart. You know what I mean? In high school, being like, so what? Like we just didn't. And then my values grew from what worked and didn't work in it. But as I grew up older, my brother, it was his birthday and he's been passed for many years. He taught me a lot of that. He's the one who, thank God, was there for me to say, like, why aren't you asking people, like, what matters to you? What do you like? What do you just like? Hey, no, that doesn't work for me. No.
I think, Regina, we did have those conversations, and in the same breath, we're going back many years, when I was really young, and I probably didn't understand the concept of values and boundaries. As we're having this conversation, this just came to me. I'm thinking that values is the building blocks to what the boundaries are, right? It's like, I have these values. I should share them with you because we are in a relationship, or a friendship or a business deal. And by the way, if those values are broken, you have now broken a boundary, right? Because I've now shared with you what's important to me. And in this relationship, I want to know the same for you. I want to know those values. And if those values are aligned, then it's cool. We're two aligned countries that can live in peace, and grow together. But if our values aren't aligned, there's that chance that we're going to break that boundary, right? And that's where relationships like fall apart.
So in the time that we have left, Genevieve mentioned something really important where she was like, holy cow, I don't know what I value. How does a person know what they value? And if we go according to what Hal just said, how do I know what I value? And how will I know if someone crossed that boundary?
Love that question.
In the time that we have left, real quick, guys, what would you say to Genevieve to help provide assistance?
Take some self-development. I think I broke up. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was saying, I don't know if you heard me. I think to develop your values, take some self-development work, right? To really sit and go through this process. Come to my leadership class. I work on this with my students.
Number 2.
As long as you don't mind sitting with high school students.
Yep.
Broke up, Hal.
He froze.
Oh.
But it is a conversation. I
think my connection is low.
Yeah. Yep. That's all right. You're kind of freezing out. Yeah, you're back. So can you say the last sentence?
I was just word vomiting, but I think, it's about really self-exploration. I think what's really also important to understand about values is your values can change, right? It's like looking at your life and seeing and really sitting and thinking about what is important to me, what lights me up, what moves me, what drives me. Is it family? Is it having fun? Is it music? Music is one of my values. I cannot go a day without listening to music or writing music. Journaling is a value to me, like expressing myself, in different ways is an important value to me. It's something I need to do. And I want to share that with somebody, right? Things like honesty, those things in a relationship, honesty and commitment and deep dive conversations, that's a value for me. But that comes from experience, from really thinking about my life, what worked for me and what didn't work for me, and what helps me to be the best version of myself, what helps me to grow. And that's how you start to develop your values. What was the second part of her question, though?
No,
the second part of my question is, how do we develop the values? And then how do we know if we don't know what our values are, how do we know when someone crossed the boundary? Because you said values and boundaries are different. However, there's a connection somewhere.
Yeah, I think values are the building blocks to knowing your boundaries. And that's a really great question, Raquel. And I don't know if this is a right or wrong answer, but I think if you don't know your values or you're not working on developing, it's much more difficult to know when someone crosses it.
Bingo.
Or somebody will cross it and you just won't feel right. You just won't know, like, why is that pissing me off? Everything's a mirror, right? So if that person is making me angry, if I'm triggered, it might be that that's a mirror to you understanding what your values are and what your boundary is, right? Very often a boundary got broken and you don't know it was a boundary that got broken. You're just in reaction mode because you're not having the conversation and you don't have the language to it, right? But if you start sitting and writing and thinking, what's important to me? What are my values? Then you'll be more conscious of your boundaries. Then you can have those conversations with people.
Awesome. I love it. Reg, you have anything real quick that you want to throw in?
No, I thought it was really great. I just wanted to say, as we're talking, that, values aren't like good or bad. They're just having you like look at what about you being like what's truly you, what's authentic about you. So if like you really want to start looking at your values, it's not about what you think they should be. It's already there. It's already there for you. It's woven, like Hal was saying, throughout your life. You can really look at your life from family to, teachers to environment to people, and those things that really matter to you that made an impact in your life. And they're, if we take out the judgment of it, like this worked, this, didn't work for me, you could start really like sort of looking, and it's a puzzle piece. I like to say it's like peeling an onion and going through it all. But it is, I agree with Hal, it's a ever growing, ever self-development kind of thing. And there's also tons of ways that you can go and have people help you with that, or just Google something and there's like
tons of amazing
I love how
there.
Red said, I asked the question, I said, do you have anything? She said no, and then she went into no, but no became like a whole 2-3 minute conversation that she had. But reality is, as both Reg and Hal are saying, is basically spend time with yourself. What is it that when people do it to you, it really puts you in a different headspace and not a pleasant headspace? That's something that for me, I value honesty. That's one thing. If you lie to me, there is no second chance to lie. Now, years ago, yes. Now, no, because I don't present that, and I don't hold that space that it's okay to lie, because I don't know how to deal with someone when they lie. I don't know how to operate in that space of untruth. And they say the truth hurts. I'd rather know the truth than for you to hold it and say, well, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Hurt my feelings. Then I get to choose whether or not I want to keep you or whether I want to subtract you from my life.
You've painted the piece right there.
You understand? That's just one. I've got a couple. Have my values changed? Absolutely. Boundaries are going to change. Just like Susan said earlier, your boundaries change as you learn, you grow, you experience life. And you're like, I used to value that as a kid. What did you used to value? I don't think you value that anymore. But just spend time with you and in that space of what is it that I hold so near and dear. And when someone betrays that, it really hurts me. What is that for you? It could be something different for each and every one of us. Does that make sense? I hope so, Genevieve. Hal, always great to see you and have you on. Absolutely love it. And we want to tell us again where we can listen to your new album. Tell us what's the title.
It's The Becoming. It's based on my Beautiful Souls book series that came out, a bunch of years ago. That's getting re-released again under Lucky Book Publishing. Super stoked about it. It's everywhere you listen to music. Regina and I are coming to New York to bring the band Outlet back. We're going to do a huge benefit June 20th in Manhattan. Big stuff coming down the pike with that. It's exciting to get on the drum kit after all the surgeries and all the health stuff that I've traveled through. It's like a little bit of celebration of life, and we're going to raise some money for education in cancer. So we're hoping everybody comes back. Your community has been so supportive. I am grateful to all of you out there for making the book a #1 bestseller. Listen to the music and come to the shows. Help us help others. So thank you, everybody.
Awesome. If you ever need me to do backup, don't call me because it'll be terrible. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so very much. And until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep choosing you. Take care.